Bam! MC is in the house. What is going on, folks? My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim. And if you guys have not yet signed up to my free email newsletter, go to masterchim.com and put your email down there. Jay Crussell, I already see a comment there. I cannot attend today. Thanks, MC Friday. Right on, brother. I will see you next time. Make sure you catch this later, though. All of you guys watching, too, make sure you like and subscribe. I make sure that I say what I need to say, and who knows when the hell I'm going to be pulled off this thing. But in the interim, let's play the game the best we can. Judge Cohen in the house. What's going on, brother man? So today, I got a bunch of things. Corey, what's up, brother? I got a bunch of things going on. Make sure you guys could see and hear me also on Facebook. So if somebody is on Facebook, do me a favor, give a like and maybe even a comment. Right. I have to FL Treasure. What's going on in the house? Warming up for his leg workout, says Corey. Right on. Jesse, what's up, brother man? Joseph, what's going on? Do me a favor, somebody from Facebook who's watching, just give me a comment. Make sure that you are Juan. There he is. Number one in my book. Jamie, what's up, brother man? Up in Canada. Hope all is well. Goose in the house on YouTube. All right. So I am going to prep one of these this image that I shared. And today I'm going to be talking about Casey. What's up, darling? I love that I have a comment from somebody with the Facebook name Facebook user. Looks like somebody's been getting in trouble lately, right? All right, I'm just give me a second, guys. I'm figuring this shit out as I go. I'm trying to share this image that I got before of Ryan Holiday's, one of his blog posts that I'm going to be dissecting today. And I'm going to have a lot of fucking fun while I'm doing it. All right. So while you guys are listening, anybody that has any experience with Ryan Holiday, let me know. And listen, I'm not gonna shout you out and go in on you, but let me know if you in fact have a positive experience with Ryan Holiday's stuff. I have never read any of his books. I was first made aware of him when I was actually, prior to writing and publishing TRIBALNOMICS, I saw that he used to work for Tucker Max's publishing company, which I believe is, at the time, it was Scribe Media. It might still be that. Sometimes they change these things, but he was working for Tucker Max and went off and wrote his books. And the books that he's written have been a tremendous commercial success. And, I will say, I never read any of his books. My first exposure was when he was working, or I heard his name mentioned or referenced in the Tucker Max stuff on his Scribe Media page. I was thinking about, purchasing a package to get this thing properly edited and promoted and published. And I wound up going against it. It was quite a bit of a coin. And also for the money, there was also a component where they helped you write the book. And I really didn't want to do that for TRIBALNOMICS, so it turned me off for it. But anyway, I was made aware of him through that. And then through the success of his book, it was constantly being referenced. I've studied Stoicism in the past. I'm a very, big fan of a lot of Stoic philosophies and philosophers. And he seemed to be the go-to guy for a lot of those people, which, listen, subject matter expert, it's one of those things. If he's the subject matter expert on Marcus Aurelius, then so be it. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. But what I noticed was he was starting to sort of leverage his reputation as somebody who was not only an advocate for, but an expert on Stoicism, to sort of in a not too covert fashion. He was using it to leverage putting out his own political leanings, which it turns out are that of a complete fucking cunt. Can you say that? I could say that, right? So, full disclosure, if you guys have never been on one of my live streams, I have something of a potty mouth, so just bear with it. Yarn Saxa, what's going on, Dawn? Happy Wednesday to you. And Raphael, what's going on, brother? All right, so I have this one article. Now, when I saw, we know at this point, that the pandemic was a shit show all around, and it was something that affected a lot of different people different ways. And one of the things that I had argued early on when it came to lockdowns, and I don't want to make this a pandemic thing. This is really the pandemic exploited or exposed a guy like Ryan Holiday for who he is. And I want to be able to sort of, at the end of this conversation, identify people like that and identify them in a way that we could not allow them to sort of permeate our own worldview, or at least not without having a filter that sort of plucks out or distills the biases that they're trying to embed in their messaging, right? So if you go to let me think of a good example here. My usual go-to is a doctor, but even now that's like thrown on its head in terms of trust. But let's just, for argument's sake, you go to a doctor who is the foremost expert on, I don't know, fucking elbow surgery, right? I got fucked up elbows. I would love to meet a doctor like that. And in interacting and engaging this doctor in his office, you come into some information that he is also on the complete opposite side of your political leanings. Like, that does not have anything to do with the overlap of what the alliance is. So one of the things worth noting here is the information that a guy like Ryan Holiday talks about is not inherently, tainted by who Ryan Holiday is, as an individual. Now, I'm going to make the argument that maybe you should be looking for better outlets or better suppliers or sources of information than somebody who has that degree of offset. But that, we'll get to that. Derek, what's going on, brother man? Good to see you. Corey says, side note, the Michael Sugar channel is pretty great if you're into philosophy lectures and similar material. Corey, thank you for putting that. I have probably seen every single video on that channel. I have suggested it to my coaching students. I have my kids watching videos from there. And you are absolutely right. It is an incredible resource. And it was sort of recorded at a time when professors took their profession so seriously, and the sort of code of what a professor is meant to be is just ingrained in who those individuals were, and it comes across in every single presenter that's on that channel. Michael, and I don't know if it's Sugru, I don't know. It could be like sugary, Sugaroo. I'm bastardizing his name, but regardless, he is an incredible, probably the best ever I've heard present on philosophy. And the people that are on his channel, aside from him, are just as impressive. But everybody, and Corey, I really appreciate you bringing that up, because that is one of my points, and that I was getting to also, which is, the sources of information. It's like, listen, a lot of people were introduced to Stoicism by a guy like, Ryan Holiday. And because Ryan Holiday is a fucking cunt, it does not denigrate or reduce the power and value of that information. And I would absolutely advocate that, you guys seek that out. 12-pack says any doctor that pushes the jizya should be charged for crimes against humanity. And, I agree, probably a tangent for another day, but I absolutely agree. So let me see if I could figure this thing out. All right. Okay. Huh. All right. I think we're good. So nice. Right on. You guys could see my cursor and everything. I tell you, man, technology is the shit. FL Treasure says, thanks. I just subscribed. Awesome. Awesome. And I suggest everybody do that. All right. Now, let me get into this. So this is, and it's like one of those things where, as soon as I think it's human nature, as soon as you start not liking somebody, you start nitpicking and stuff. So I won't even, start getting into all of that, but I think, I think it's valuable that we go to the source, and this is on his actual website. This is the blog that he wrote. Now, this blog, I was exposed to when he shared it on social media, I believe on Instagram, and it was one of these like, I know better than you do, and I am the most humble, the most moral, and it's just that same sort of insufferable fucking worldview that you see with a lot of intellectuals, a lot of elite, spoiled, never been through the shit type of motherfuckers, and it was readily apparent in Mr. Holiday. So another guy that does this also is Sam Harris. Sam Harris is another cunt. Now, Sam Harris, I will give him the credit for actually bringing up and creating and sharing original, that's not even a fucking word, original ideas. It's original ideas. Whereas Ryan Holiday, as I've saved this criticism for very specific people over the last years, but he is somebody who writes poems about other people's poems. In his subset of that category, he is somebody who sells poems about other great men's poems, right? So he is somebody who is a merchant through and through. Now, on my desk here, I probably should have, let me see if I could bring this up. Now, when I first saw his website, there is a combination of, listen, the guy's doing his thing. He's got his hustle going. He's trying to make a living, and I'm not fucking mad at him. I'll be the first one to say, like, listen, if he's somebody that, finds a way to give value to people and monetize it in a way that he can make a living, I mean, that's exactly what he should be doing. But it's not just that. He's one of these individuals who has now amassed a lot of influence, and the influence that he has is now getting to the point where he is going to sort of be allowed into, and I'm doing three things at once. I apologize for my choppy speaking. But he is somebody who is going to find his way into certain circles, and he's going to start influencing people that he should not be. So I'm somebody that wants to be able to look for these individuals and sort of find where exactly they are and not allow them access to these circles of influence, especially not in those circles that I myself, find myself in. So let me. All right. So I'm trying to get this directly from the TRIBALNOMICS book. And I just opened this file with a pretty shitty app. So I'm going to read it. But this is from TRIBALNOMICS. The merchant sees alliances as paths to resources, not the pursuit of resources as a path to the synergy found in an alliance. The nature of the merchant is that they have trained to present themselves as an in-tribe brother and put value alliances through the lens of what can be acquired. The difference between this mission of the merchant and the non-merchant seeking the synergy of alliance is that the alliance with a merchant can never evolve naturally to include more powerful traits of alliance, like concepts like including sacrifice and generational transcendence. The merchant does not see himself in what will be completely on mission to connect with you in a way that is both familiar and comparable to the way you would connect with a brother in tribe. The merchant will influence rituals and their trajectory to pursue the mission of resource acquisition. He feels no obligation to be forthcoming and transparent in his intent, and will willfully, gladly even, enjoy a disproportionate return from an ally, unbeknownst to said ally. So, when we're looking at the merchant, when I criticize him for being a merchant, it's not somebody that sells something. Somebody that sells something is a salesman, is a trader, is a barter, is a business person. But the merchant archetype, in the context in which I'm using it, the label in which I'm using it, is somebody who portrays himself to be like a brother. And he will do that in a way that allows him to gain access to resources, in a way that he will be able to get more than he gives. That is the nature of the merchant identity. And it's not that, well, listen, a fair trade is a fair trade. I agree, and that's exactly what one should do. But the merchant archetype is willing to get more than what the other person's giving if he can basically get away with it, right? So all that being said, let's get into this blog post. This is the blog post that he shared. I highlighted a couple things on here, and you can look for it yourself. I don't know the name offhand of his website. I mean, it might be ryanholiday.com. I don't know. But the name of the blog is Life is About What We Can Do for Each Other. And it is, it's a long read. I highlighted a couple things that I'm going to go over and dissect. But I suggest you guys, listen, go check it out for yourself. I believe it was written in April of 2021. I could probably go down and check. Where is it? April 13th, 2021. So all that being said, he also gets the benefit of, taking positions based on information that was at that moment. But, not so fast, those of you that might be looking to give him a pass, because he says some shit that doesn't matter what type of information came out. You get to see what exactly, he's all about. And one of the great things about him being as emotionally charged as he is that he looks to conflate all of these issues that don't necessarily have to do with each other, but all the thing that all of these different things, these different topics have in common is they reside in him. And so he is making connections that to the observer are almost like non sequiturs, but for him, it's all a part of his worldview and philosophy. So there's really not that disconnection that other people may be seeing. All that being said, I'm not going to read the whole thing, all right? But let's read this. Okay, so indeed, the greatest achievements in human history are not selfish ones. Okay, so that's a statement. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to read a little bit and comment a little bit. The greatest achievements in human history are not selfish ones. I don't necessarily agree with that. It's putting, and again, I don't want to nitpick. I don't want to sit here and just say, yeah, well, I don't agree with that one thing. This is a big ass blog post. And if I dissect it sentence by sentence, I'm certainly going to find a bunch to criticize. And that's not my intent. But it's important that this statement, be disagreed with, because this is sort of the underlying premise of all this other shit he's trying to get away with as the article goes on. So it's art that speaks to what it means to be alive, that gives hope, that gives people hope or insight. It's a scientific breakthrough that makes things better for everyone. I wonder what he's talking about there. It was the invention of the rule of law. It was the notion that government exists with the consent of the people. I agree with that. It's the collective sacrifices. It's the tackling of hard problems together. So the greatest achievements in human history are the tackling of hard problems together. Okay, that's your position. I don't necessarily agree, or I think it's clumsily stated. It's stated in a way to sort of include a couple of preferences and positions that he wants to leverage later on. But okay, I see you. So let's go down to here. On Easter, James Altucher, who I am vaguely familiar with, I know he has a crazy hairdo, and a lot of people that I know follow him. So, but I haven't read any of his stuff, but I don't know anything about him aside from what I stated. On Easter, James Altucher sent me a verse from the Gospel of Mark. Whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant. It reads, and whoever wants to be first must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. Okay? There was a time in my life when that would have made zero sense to me. Look at the language: servant, slave, give your life, no thanks. As I have gotten older, its logic is clearer. Perhaps this came, as I wrote a while back, from discovering the relative emptiness of accomplishments. Maybe it was having kids. Maybe it just took a while for the wisdom to seep in. Or maybe it was a byproduct of bearing witness to the rampant selfishness, needless cruelty, and displaced rage that has consumed large swaths of our society over the last year especially. So that's it's a hell of a sort of sequence in that share of the things that could have gotten, could have contributed to him realizing that people were supposed to, in order to be first, they should be a slave of all, right? So that's what he is saying contributed to his understanding and acceptance of that logic. It's all the things that he listed here, right? So the byproduct of bearing witness to the rampant selfishness, needless cruelty, and displaced rage that has consumed large swaths of our society over the last year especially, have contributed to him understanding that verse from the Gospel of Mark that was shared to him by his buddy. So if we're looking at exactly what it is that he is advocating for here, he's advocating for this mindset, or at least this is the premise that he wants to operate from, this mindset that, as stated in the Bible, in order to help people, we have to become a slave to them. Now, listen, I'm not looking to dissect and interpret the Bible. Those of you that are Christians, I am not a Christian, but those of you that are Christians that have a different interpretation of that, that's fine. Listen, okay, I'll go with your interpretation. But he is couching it as the connection to what he's realized over the last year, watching other people. So now look at this now. I suspect in a perverse way, the ugliness of that prolonged moment from COVID-19 to our racial reckoning will turn out to be a gift for us all. You see what he did there? What the fuck does a racial reckoning have to do with fucking COVID? Like, what the fuck does one have to do with the other? All of a sudden, like in an article that's talking about, we're supposed to be, what was the fucking, life is about what we could do for each other, right? That's, all of a sudden, he is now going from COVID, and he's talking about a racial reckoning. So now he's starting to let the cat out of the bag. So here we go. There was a great Huffington Post headline a few years ago. It's like, you might be able to just full stop right there. That captured the impotence one feels trying to discuss basic human rights or compassion or restraint to some people. I don't know how to explain to you that you should care about other people. Now, again, captured the impotence one feels. I don't feel impotent when trying to discuss anything with other people. I offer information, and if those people cannot, will not, either of them, accept what it is that I am putting forward, I understand the nature of the communication in that it is It is an impossibility that I cannot force people to gain understanding, despite the efforts and intentions that I have trying to communicate with them. So the impotence one feels trying to discuss basic human rights or compassion or restraint to some people. So if you are trying to discuss these things, I think that what he's trying to bring up as a point of contention is it starts to look like that when he explains these things to people, at the end of it, they don't agree with him. And therefore, he feels an impotence because these people don't agree with him. So now when you're dealing with the left, and this is exactly who Ryan Holiday is, he's one of these crazy elite leftists. When you're dealing with people like that, it is their MO, their modus operandi, that they are going to have a frustration and it's going to be expressed tyrannically under the label and guise of benevolence. That is what you will see from these people. And that is exactly the picture he's starting to paint. Onto his blog post. I found myself thinking that same thing time and time again over the last year too, whether it was after watching something on the news or talking to a neighbor or even writing to my own audience here about the pandemic. The social justice and race conversations that exploded this summer, the 2020 election, and now vaccines. All right, so this is, if the cat's going to get out of the bag, at this point, the bag's already been closed with the cat on the outside of it. This is exactly who this guy is. He is somebody, now again, if you are a leftist like he is, if you are somebody who has a sympathy or empathizes even with the left's talking points, then listen, like this might be your guy. In that case, you might be reading this and go, what's wrong with what he's saying? And that's your prerogative. Who I am addressing this to are those people who stand for a different political position that right now, I would argue, is as heated and as valuable a battle being fought than America, since America was in the Civil War. There is a point where we have to start calling these people out and being able to call people out in a way where we could actually have these discussions without people becoming over emotional and personal and looking to create these ad hominems and things like that. Kind of ironic considering I'm doing a video on an individual, but it's really representative of how people are treating guys like this. So if you are somebody who stands for the Constitution, if you are somebody who is a believer in the rights of the individual, in basic human rights that we're born with, and those that are codified in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, then this is somebody who is not an ally in that position. This is somebody who has the same relationship with those things that the average progressive leftist has. And because that's the case, the nature, this isn't an elbow doctor. This isn't a car mechanic. This isn't a barber. This is somebody who talks about philosophy, talks about the approach that we should be internalizing to address our life in a way that's going to be functional and successful, both on a self level and the scale of tribe. So this is somebody that needs to be vetted before his information is allowed in those circles to which I'm referring, right? Let's go back to this blog post. All right. Just last week, this is telling. Just last week, a very accomplished friend sent me a note explaining his resistance to the COVID-19 vaccines, which, by the way, marks an incredible collective human accomplishment on par with landing on the moon. Quoting his friend, he writes, "Why should I, a perfectly healthy adult in a safe age bracket, have to risk myself by taking some new vaccine?" he said to me. The polite technical term for this is vaccine hesitancy. I think it's more correct to call it an abdication of duty, a rejection of our collective purpose. Listen, motherfucker, we don't have a fucking collective purpose. It is argued that we share a collective consciousness due to our collective experience. The coexistence as we evolve has produced connections that I completely acknowledge as being there. But when we start to label these things as collective purpose, that means because of where we were, this is where we're supposed to be going together. Fuck you, dude. Fuck you. Back to his article. I'd love a chance to go back and explain this conversation to my grandfather and great-grandfather who fought in World War I and World War II. I guarantee you, your grandfathers would be calling you a pussy. That's exactly what they would be fucking calling you. So let me get into this before I go on another tangent. Next thing. Oh, you're worried about the possibility of side effects despite the overwhelming available information to the contrary? And yes, this is true even after yesterday's announcement about the J&J vaccine. So he already had that information about the Johnson & Johnson one fucking people up. You're wondering why you should have to take a tiny risk when you're otherwise healthy and could go otherwise about your life just fine? I'm sure the generations who not only lived through typhus, the great influenza, and polio, but then had to cross the Atlantic and fight someone else's war would totally understand. Oh, now watch this fucking line right here. Do you know what the data said about landing at Normandy? I can imagine my grandfather saying, it said we were probably all going to die, and it wasn't even certain that the invasion would work. Did this motherfucker just compare himself to the people fucking landing and on the beaches of Normandy because he took a vaccine? Did he just fucking do that? Yeah, he did. He did. That's what he did. Now, I mean, I could go on and on and on about why this guy, why just the absolute ludicrous, logic that he's trying to put out here. But now here's the thing. If we don't have significance, right? So as a plight of an individual, we have and I like the framework of Anthony Robbins' 6 basic human needs. Amongst these needs are certainty and significance. Significance is really we have a drive to do something that's worth the shit. Now, I've said before, you can't be a hero without slaying the dragon. There needs to be a dragon. The dragon needs to have all the inherent risks of what we would label a dragon. Confronting that risk at one's potential own peril starts to describe the mindset and therefore the actions of what we culturally label a hero. You have these leftist fucking cowards who have to have their participation in this authoritarian bullshit be something of a risk that they have managed to overcome. So they are the heroes of humanity. That is the narrative that these people need. When in actuality, they are so fucking scared. They are following a mindset of such a fear-based logic that nothing that they're doing is taking on risk. It is all risk mitigation. Ironically, with absolutely no deference or acknowledgement of the plights of other people. It is the exact opposite of a hero. It is somebody who doesn't give a fuck about the tribe. It's somebody who is all about himself. I'm going to continue. It sucks to have your life and business disrupted, to lose opportunities you worked for your whole life. I make my living flying around and giving talks to large groups indoors. The last 12 months were quite anxious economically. It was stranger still having to turn down offers to speak to groups that had no business getting together during the second and third surges of the pandemic. But that was obviously right. It was obviously right that you turned down speaking engagements for groups that you say had no business getting together during the second and third surges of the pandemic. Well, let me ask you, obviously we have the hindsight of the benefit of hindsight. But did all these people in all these meetings die? Were these things like spreaders of the plague that you narrowly escaped? And it's a good thing that you stood up for your moral position because it actually saved you. Like, you're a cunt. You didn't go to those events because you're scared. Now, here's the thing that is admittedly annoying, enraging, aggravating, all of the above to me. Those groups that wanted him to come and talk, I guarantee you, they told him, well, whenever you feel safe, we'll have you back then. Why? Because he's somebody with best-selling books. He's somebody who has notoriety and status on social media. And that's the game that these people play. Like, I don't understand. Like, what does it fucking take for you people to stand up for your fucking beliefs? What does it take for you to sort of opt out of this worldwide artificial popularity contest of social media and say, you know what? If this guy doesn't want to support, my belief to have my own position, fuck that guy. But that's not what we see. It's if I know this guy, it might connect me to other people. It might help me network. And listen, if you want to play that game, that's fine. But I will say society right now is going to fucking hell in a handbasket because that type of thinking allows the people behind the scenes to orchestrate the clusterfuck that we're all paying for right now. Because everybody wants to get along. I will never be popular at that level on social media because I don't fucking play by anybody's fucking rules. I will call anybody out on their bullshit, but I will also, I challenge you to find a more loyal ally than me. I challenge you to find somebody that is not willing to sacrifice and invest in helping the people he's connected to than me. But I refuse to play this bullshit fucking game of this guy can get me somewhere on social media, so I should therefore, pretend that we're the same. You, me, yeah, we're all about the same mission. No, we're fucking not. On to this fucking nonsense of a next section. I also happen to have dropped my life savings into opening a bookstore in my small town of Texas. I'm going to call bullshit on that, but whatever. 2 months before the world shut down. Needless to say, it was a financial bloodbath to sit here and not be able to open. I don't know if he understands what a fucking bloodbath means. As the expenses carried on nonetheless. But again, what was the alternative? Put my interests over somebody's grandma or some cancer patient who was already facing high enough odds as it is? Externalize the consequences of the actions I freely took and make society carry all the weight? I think I'd rather die of COVID than that. Get the fuck out of here, you lying piece of shit. Okay, now here's the thing. One of the things I brought up early on in this whole thing, that a lot of these fucking guys, and I don't know who Ryan Holiday is. I don't give a fuck. I don't want to know who the fuck he is. But I do know that he is detached from the experience of most people. And it's usually, a lot of these elites on the left, they're the ones who are advocating for all the people who are oppressed and suffering, blah, blah, blah. Well, here's one of the things I advocated for, that the lockdowns would disproportionately affect single mothers in urban environments. Like when you have, I own a martial arts school in New York City. I have single mothers who bust their fucking ass to be able to pay for their children to be in my martial arts program because of the benefit that they know it's going to bring to their child. They sacrifice tremendously to make that happen. And that's not an investment I take lightly. Well, you know what happens when you tell this mother who probably has a shitty job, who's living week to week and trying to keep herself sane? When you tell her, oh, you have to stay in your fucking house, that your kids can't go to school, that you have to wear a mask everywhere you go? Like, here's the thing. I said this also way back when. My wife and I, we homeschool our 4 children. I have acres of land in Pennsylvania. My kids, during this whole lockdown, their lives were basically unaffected. They can go in the pool. They can go in the playground. They can go in the woods. They could jump on the trampoline. They could watch TV. They could play their musical instruments. They could, they could do whatever the fuck they want. But I know enough to know that that's not everybody's experience. And I don't advocate for a custom fit legislation to accommodate me at my level of comfort. But that's exactly what this fucking guy does. His next thing that I highlighted, of course nobody comes out and says, I don't care about people. They say a bunch of other stuff instead. Stuff that I'm sure you already are getting ready to angrily write me in response to this article, right? So here is this little cunty move, right? It's disarming the validity of criticism of what he's writing. And he's a cunt enough to put it in his writing. I welcome criticism. I welcome any conversation. Like, if you are going to sit here and say that I am wrong, not in my preference, but in my premises that are logic-based, like, I welcome the conversation. But this is what happens with these fucking holier-than-thou know-it-alls, right, who've never had a fucking rough day in their fucking life. They think they've had rough days. They have no fucking idea. Fucking citing storming the beach at Normandy and comparing that to taking a fucking vaccine. You fucking kidding me? Back to his bullshit. They say this pandemic is overblown. They shrug and say, well, I guess we all have different risk tolerances. We can have different preferences about how we invest our retirement money, not whether we drink and drive. Right? So these are these false fucking comparisons that he's making. Having an opinion that differs from his on whether or not the pandemic is overblown is akin to advocating for drinking and driving. Back to him. They try to claim that what they're really worried about is how this affects small businesses or lonely people, right? Right? Because I was a small business that was shut down, and I just I think gave a very common example of the single mother scenario, right? They say, but this wedding is really important to my sister. They say, my 6-year-old deserves a party with their friends. Can you not read the fucking bias in even the examples he cites? He cites the people that disagree with him as being people who are talking about weddings and birthday parties for 6-year-olds. What the fuck world does he think the rest of the world lives in? It's not his. Back to him. COVID is not the only place this indifference manifests. Rather than wrestle with police brutality or the simmering rage of their black countrymen and women, they say, but what about black on black crime? They say, but what about all the property damage? They said, what about Antifa? How the fuck does this guy think that these things have anything remotely to do with one another, aside from their connection in his view of the world and his philosophy of the world? Next paragraph. All of this is a way of dodging the reality of the choice in front of us. Can you subjugate your own interests, if only temporarily, for the sake of someone else? For the sake of who? For the sake of who? How about for the sake of that, all the small business owners who are still trying to find a way to make a living after their businesses went under? How about all the single mothers who now are sitting in a shit ton of bills, may have lost their jobs? All the people that I know that have lost their jobs because of vaccine mandates in the workplace that have since been, turned the other way all of a sudden. It's like, all right, that's enough of that. Never mind all the lives that we destroyed, mandating these things. And he's talking about, what he's doing is for the sake of someone else. No, it's for the sake of you, you fucking cunt. Back to his writing. countless someone else's, most of whom you will never know or even meet. Can you serve them? Can you sacrifice for any of them? Can you hear what they're saying? Can you care? Methinks the lady doth protest too much. Oh my God. The last thing. This is like a perfect ending to this fucking blog post. Did the pandemic or the racial events of the last year reveal the difference in privileges that some of us have? Absolutely. And this knowledge should increase our sense of obligation. Oh my God. You can't fucking make this up. You cannot make this up. Ryan Holiday is a cunt. There are a lot of people like Ryan Holiday who are also cunts. There's something to be said for an individual who understands that when he stands for what he feels is right, inherent in that stance is going to be a group of people who no longer approve of who you are and what you represent. That's part of taking a stance. His stance certainly has me on the other side of that, so he understands that, even though he tried to disarm it in the most passive aggressive cunty way, doing the sort of the future rebuttals for criticism. Most guys are so emotional, they're gonna, after they read this, they're gonna say that I'm wrong. That's how emotional they are. It's like, that's not the way logic works. But here's the thing: I'm an advocate for individual, pursuit of one's destiny. I believe, and I've said this, I don't know how many times at this point, that the Constitution is the compromise. The Constitution is the thing that allows us to coexist. The pandemic, while certainly now we have the benefit of hindsight, as mentioned earlier, there were people like me who early on knew that this was an opportunity for those in power to gain more power, those in power to restructure the way society was designed, to leave them where they are, to sort of create these structures in the way society manages itself that maintains their class, that codifies their status and the people in their groups' statuses, at a level that we haven't seen since, monarchies and dictatorships and the like. Somebody like Ryan Holiday, like, does he know what he's doing? Does he know about the plight of the single mother? He claims he invested his life savings in this bookstore. Well, 80% of my income came from my school when they closed it down. Like I've lived what I'm describing. But back then, there was still a position that people should have their rights. People should be able to do what they want to do. And if there is a line where everybody needs to be forced to comply with something, number one, was that line crossed? And number two, you trust the government to impose that regulation? With a lot of leftists, you get this pie in the sky, utopian, this is the way everything should be, without absolutely any consideration for how that's logistically supposed to happen. There's the great Thomas Sowell quote where he says, in life, all there are trade-offs. It's all trade-offs. A lot of times, most times it's not right or wrong. It's different shades of right, different shades of wrong. What decision puts us in a better position? Because it's nothing but a trade-off. He chastises in that blog article his very accomplished friend, I think was the phrase he used to describe him, that said, why should I have to take a vaccine? I'm young, I'm healthy. Statistically, there isn't a way that I'm going to get sick, but why should I take on the risk of side effects from the vaccine? And he looks at this as some sort of moral deficiency in his friend. Well, the actuality is, if we are going to move past this, people need to engage it. And the people that can engage it, in a robust, healthy way are the ones. And this is just, this is science that has existed for a long time before COVID came around. It's like, yeah, you want people to fight this naturally because they're the ones that produce antibodies. So why shouldn't somebody? But here's the thing. There needs to be a willingness to fight when it's time to fight, which is why I take such issue with him trying to compare himself to the people storming the beaches at Normandy. It's like, I literally have it was gifted to me. If you could see right there, this is a picture of one of the boats opening on the beaches of Normandy with vials of sand from the Normandy beach that was gifted to me by a friend of mine. Like, in my office, I have a tribute to what those brave men did at Normandy. Like, I'm not somebody who takes their sacrifice lightly, but I'll be damned if I'm going to sit by and let this fucking guy compare what he did to what those men fucking did. It's like, yeah, there's a risk for taking the vaccine. Are you comparing that risk to the risk of having the fucking wall drop with a bunch of people fucking shooting at you as you're supposed to run forward and take a beach? Like, what the fuck are you doing? It's just irresponsible. It shows how detached somebody is, that he would even have a lack of respect to design an analogy that includes that comparison. Like, are you fucking kidding me? We got a few minutes left. Let me get to some comments here, and this is going back a ways. What's up, Eric? Joe Rotendo says, even if you're not a Christian, if you reject transcendent hierarchy, these ideas won't make any sense. Ethel Treasure is right. Superficial as fuck. And that's exactly what he is. Understand this guy is somebody who is very good at the game. Let me give him some credit, right? Ryan Holiday, holy fuck, he is good at playing the game. He is a master of the aquarium. He is somebody who understands how to play the game at a level that, somebody like me, as a comparison, I'm not able to play. And I admit it's from a lack of information. It's from a lack of network. And admittedly, there's just a lack of willingness at a certain point. I coach, I have a coaching business, and I coach a lot of people in business. And one of the things that that's a component of my coaching program is anonymity. I don't market the people that I coach. I don't put their name out there. Why? Because I reserve the right to maintain who I am. I want to be able to have videos like this that might get fucking taken down, that might, cost me a bunch of followers. Like, I don't give a fuck. I am going to be true to who I am. And whatever the cost is, maintaining my integrity, it's a price worth paying. Right? And I know that if in my coaching business, if I were to actually market and leverage the people that I coach, some very, significant, successful, some more popular people, if I were to leverage them, it would mean a positive effect on my business. But I do not want to do that, lest I now lose the ability to be myself, because it is going to negatively affect those people I'm charged with helping in the first place. So then it begs the question, well, why even be on social media then? What's the big deal? And I will say, this is part of my business, plan, part of my business process. If you guys have ever watched the Loyalty Matrix, you understand that the RPS formula, the P, is procreation, and I need to have a procreation formula. Part of writing TRIBALNOMICS was that procreation formula. And I've gotten a tremendous amount of business from people who have read the book and decided to continue and seek me out and either have coaching or join the Warrior Project to have access to other programs and more content. So this is part of this process. But in doing that, I have to maintain a congruence in what my positions have always been. Now, what does this cost me? This cost me what? Popularity. It cost me money. But it doesn't cost me significance, because the significance metric that I have is not built upon a fucking numerical value in my bank account. It's not built upon how many strangers approve of the messages that I put on social media. Significance comes from the things that matter to me: my family, my health, my legacy in the form of my philosophies, my students. These are the things that matter to me. A relationship with nature. I have very personal spiritual views that I don't even share publicly, because it's nobody's fucking business what I do. I don't take the cool pictures in the fucking, in the woods, with fucking with my shirt off and stuff like some other fucking writers do, because I actually walk the walk. But there's a price for that. And part of that price is popularity in the aquarium. It's a price I'm willing to pay. FL Treasure says, this guy Holiday screams out soy boy virtue signaler, social justice warrior speaking in flowery feel-good terms that say essentially nothing substantial. I agree. And that's the thing. That sort of hyperbolic, fucking holier than now nonsense is par for the course with those types. It's look at how humble I am. Like I once made a shirt, like tongue in cheek. I'm the most humble motherfucker in here, and that's the paradox that these people operate under, but there are people who are masters of the aquarium, like He-Man was masters of the universe. I want to be a master of the universe. These guys are masters of the aquarium. Completely fucking different. Right. So FL Treasure says he's a leftist authoritarian, wants blanket control of everyone, using the false excuse of the common good. Right? The common good. That word common, we have to use that in its proper context and scale. Common is really dependent upon who you're sort of including in the set that you are trying to determine what is common for. There's common for my tribe, there's common for my state, there's common for the country, there's common for the globe. Which common are we supposed to be designing our life, in serving? The common goal of the world. Why? Well, what's the argument for that? Because it's the most people? That's not the case. It's like, how many times have you not eaten so that somebody starving on the other side of the world could eat something? No. People like that, what they usually do is they take their surplus, right? They make sure all their shit's there. They take their surplus and then they go and do feel good things around the world. And it's catharsis. It's bullshit. It's really narcissistic, but they'll do that and say, look, I believe in this. No, you don't. You don't believe in that. How many homeless people live in your house, Ryan Holiday? How many poor black people live in your house, Ryan Holiday? Get the fuck out of here. They always talk about diversity to divide and never unity, says 12 Pack, and I agree. And it's funny because they will talk about unity in their pursuit of diversity. But diversity, and it's almost like I'm not fucking giving any new insights here. Like, people already know this. There is just a fallacious relationship that society has with this idea of diversity. It's like diversity is really, it's advocating for less diversity. It's advocating for the elimination of majorities, for the sake of, other groups becoming majorities. Like, it's really has nothing to do with diversity. If we were really diverse, we would be maintaining identities. And in order to do that, you got to give the people the freedom to do so, right? Which obviously never fits into their bullshit. And as far as unity goes, in order to advocate for unity, touching and piggybacking on what I just mentioned, in order to be an advocate for unity, you have to accept that other people are going to maintain their offset to the overlap of the alliance you're proposing. It's like, I remember there was this basketball player. He was an Orthodox Jew, and he was a really good basketball player. And he was like local in the newspapers in New York. And I remember reading that he couldn't he was getting like Division I scholarship offers, and he couldn't do it because he I don't know, obeys the Sabbath, honors the Sabbath, like whatever the word is, the verb. So like from sundown Friday night to I think sundown Saturday night, I think that's the rule. Like he had to be away from, whatever the rules are. He couldn't be at a fucking college game is the point. And it's like if a college wanted that person on their team, they would have to accept that he wasn't going to play on Saturdays or Friday night games. And so they didn't want him because of that, right? And he wound up going to, I think, a Jewish school, which it was a non-issue. But if we're going to create alliances with people, embedded in that design needs to be the acceptance of the offset. Now, you want to sort of design the rituals that really engage the overlap of the alliance in a way that it promotes greater overlap over time. But you have to acknowledge, who they are when you make that alliance. And that is how unity is done. And this is what these people are refusing to do. Corey says the level of audacity is incredible. I agree. Claims he's been through a bloodbath as he's drowning in privilege, right? And it's like, listen, if you don't like the fact, Mr. Holiday, that you made all this money and it makes you feel guilty that there's all these people that are living in societies and realities that you have no fucking idea about, give all your money away. Stop making money, or just fucking link your book sales to this charity, like in a direct donation, so there's no middleman anymore. And everything that you've done, everything that you do in the future, the proceeds will just go to all these people that you seem to want to save. And you could just walk around like a monk thinking great thoughts, and every once in a while, borrowing somebody's technology to make a blog post, I guess. Like it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Joe says, I work in Brooklyn and all the clowns believe this is wartime, both with COVID-19 and climate change. And man, I feel for you, Joe. I feel for you. Fucking Brooklyn. Like, shout out to any of my followers that live in Brooklyn, but holy fuck, you can't pay me to go there. You cannot pay me to go there. My grandfather passed away fairly recently, and he was buried in Brooklyn, in a funeral in Brooklyn, a cemetery in Brooklyn. And I didn't make it one day in Brooklyn without getting into a cursing, shouting match with somebody, walking down the street. Like, it was like, I am so offset. And I acknowledge that. I shouldn't be there. I shouldn't be there because, again, holding myself accountable in the same way that I just described, because if I'm in Brooklyn, that's who they are, and they're allowed to be that way. And so I can't sit there and just expect all these people to not be like that, because they have the right to do that. My opinions of what being that way does for the greater society is a conversation I'll always be willing to have. But as far as demanding tyrannically that they stop, fucking gallivanting and sashaying down the fucking street and all this other shit that they were doing, that's not within my rights. If they're American citizens, they have, the Constitution is the compromise. They have the right to do that. And that's something you just don't see. That type of position is not reflected on the left. These progressives that want to change everything. Corey says, if I was reading this without his commentary, I'd be slamming my head into the wall. Well, I pre-slammed my head for you, Corey. They see those in power who hold the same beliefs and still say to themselves, I must have the right idea, and these are my people. I can't understand how. And it's just, I think there's a bias there that a lot of people just don't realize. Like this guy, Ryan Holiday, he might really feel like he's doing good work for people. He might feel now, and let me also concede that he's sharing, remember, he's selling poems he's written about great men's poems, other great men's poems. Sharing Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and Cicero and any other philosopher that is, in his content that he puts out there, that's all going to be good information. And I said this in the beginning, I fully, support the value and acknowledge the value of that information. I just think that, people like Ryan Holiday, They can't see themselves as somebody who is a problem. Or like, this guy's the stoic. He's the stoic guy. He's the stoic guy. Control the controllable. Don't worry about things that are out of your control. Like, to him, he's following that mindset because he thinks he can control other people. So he doesn't have to sit by the wayside, or sit on the sideline and just observe and allow people to be who they are, because he thinks he could actually control it. And that's how tyrants think, right? Tyrants, the definition of a tyrant is an individual who eliminates the acknowledgement and existence of another's identity. If I'm the tyrant and I'm interacting with you, you aren't who you think you are. You are who I say you are. And who I say you are will be who I need you to be for me and my mission. That is the tyrannical dynamic. And that's exactly what you see with somebody like Ryan Holiday. Big Johnny in the house. Wild man training. Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it. Good to see you as always. Utgard. I hope I can make my positions as firm as yours. I'd hate to be in an argument with you about anything. Well, here's the thing, too. I listen. I have there's a running joke in my inner circle in my academy that a lot of people leave, and like they fuck me over, they fuck the school over, they fuck their teammates over. Not everybody, but there's been a big number of people that have done that, and a very common trait amongst all of them is they never talk to me before they leave. And so the running joke is, you're so hard to talk to. And the thing is, anybody can come and talk to me about anything. And like, if I'm animated, like, listen, this is the only face I got, and I have an energy to me, and I'm not an idiot. I got some processes behind the positions that I have. And if we disagree, I'm not somebody that says, well, we'll agree to disagree. It's like, listen, I'll leave you with your preference, but everything else stays on the table, motherfucker, if we're going to talk, right? And that's the way that I deal with people. But there's nothing inherently disrespectful about it. But a lot of people will avoid having conversations with people like me. It's not just me, because they don't want their beliefs challenged. And for me, it's like I cherish those debates, the discussions really that I have with people where they unfuck positions that I have. And I put out there, it has happened, it still happens in certain areas of my life where I'm discussing something with somebody and they put something out there and it's like, fuck, man, you're right, I'm wrong. And it's always gratitude for that. I'm always thankful for that. But these people that don't have a fucking formula to unfuck themselves, it's like, fuck. A lot of fucks in that sentence. Jamie says, all of these types of people were in my grocery store complaining about the person that refused to wear a mask, despite the fact that masks at best reduced but didn't eliminate the spread. And this is the thing. It gives them, remember we were talking about significance. These individuals, this is how they became significant. Right. And, the meme archetype of the Karen, right. Who's calling the police because, these kids are, not crossing on the crosswalk, whatever the fuck a Karen does. Like, this is really generated significance. It's not functional significance. It's not natural significance. It's people wanting significance for doing something that has no fucking utility. The masks thing. There is no data. There have been no studies done that support our use of masks in public to even slow the spread of COVID. There is no support for that. Now, the thing is, there's been a bunch of mask science prior to COVID, which informed every expert's position prior to the propagandized campaign that we were exposed to. Even Fauci himself was talking about, like, look, you N95, like, you're not going to put it on and it might stop like a globule or whatever the fucking phrase he used or something. But, are you cross-contaminating? Are you wash? Like, it's not the average person. It's just not going to work. It's like, this was commonly known information. But that information wasn't going to help them in their campaign, so they need to change the narrative. And a lot of people found certainty and significance in basically volunteering to be a soldier of the authoritarian regime, right? Useful idiots is the historical term. Derek says Hollywood pretends that they give a rat's tit about people until shitbags start creeping up their front lawn. And you know, it's funny. I have some friends that are in that world, and obviously the friends that I have are pretty fucking squared away. But a hypocrisy, and this is something I've discussed with these friends of mine. You know, like, what about this guy? What about this guy? What about this guy? And I get that feedback, and you realize that very similar to Ryan Holiday, these people are looking for significance in taking positions about things they don't know about. And the problem of it is, it's sort of like if you have a good wife, right? If you have a good wife as a husband, as a man, you know, one of the things the wife is not trying to do is outshine the husband. One of the things a strong wife is not trying to do is consider herself to be significant and successful if she outdoes or even does on par with the husband what the husband goes out to the world and does. The value of the wife is understanding her position and the value, the necessity for her position of making sure the children are safe, that making sure the home is stable. You know, that certainty I was alluding to. The people in the home need a level of certainty, and the wife is charged with doing that. But as soon as a wife wants to shine the same way the husband does out in the world, what winds up suffering is they wind up doing a shitty job of it, but then they also leave the effectiveness, or they leave the commitment to the effectiveness of their job at home. And now, this is where a bunch of people lose their shit with me, but I don't give a fuck. When you're looking at actors, it's like fucking act. Shut the fuck up about everything else. You are an incredible mimicker of characters in live form, on film. You're good looking. You're very, very persuasive. Like, you have these incredible abilities. When it comes to how the world should work, shut the fuck up. What the fuck gives you any fucking claim to have any unique insight to this? They live in their fucking gated communities. They hobnob with other people that are detached from the struggles that the majority of the world endures. I don't hold that against them inherently. It's just as soon as they now think how we're supposed to fucking live, like, shut the fuck up. And you absolutely see it in fucking Hollywood. Yarn says, master of the mask of the universe, chameleon in all situations. 100%. Derek said, most leftists do good for others for their own selfish reasons, to nourish their insecurities and to not look like a rich scumbag who doesn't help others. That's right. And it comes from guilt. It comes from their inability. And this is the fucking heart of it. Let me break it down for you guys right now. The heart of it is they are conflict averse. So when they have something and they are confronted with somebody who does not have that, they need to create a narrative that helps them deal with their aversion to any potential conflict. So what do? They label themselves as a champion of those people. They internalize, or even just, overtly put out there that they're, guilt-ridden over this disparity, and it's all fucking nonsense. And if they were actually fucking tough enough, they would stand by what they have. They would stand by the system that allowed them to get it, and they would advocate that other people adopt the system as well. You look at the history of the United States. There was a time where we got a lot of shit backwards. But you know what? Here we are in 2022. We've already had a black president. We have a black Indian, whatever the fuck she is, vice president, woman, vice president. We've got fucking people that are on welfare that have type 2 diabetes, aka fatabetes. Like, we are fucking this up. And it's not because people are oppressed. It's because people aren't standing firm on advocating for the formulas that actually fucking work. Embedded in the middle of that is accountability. Imagine you're a basketball player and, you know, you want to play in the NBA and you're not good enough. What fucking argument are you going to mount to try and leverage entry into the NBA that isn't going to be completely fucking annihilated by the people in the NBA by just replying, "You're not good enough"? Yeah, but it's because I'm short. It's because I'm white. It's because I'm not good at basketball. It's because you're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. Like, that is it. There is no other categorical assessment that needs to happen. You're not good enough to play the game. If you were, you'd be here, because everybody would win, by the way. Utgard says, you're an inspiration because of the fact you see through people's bullshit. I sincerely believe you can have that without humility and great insight into yourself. Hence, I see you as your mentor. And I appreciate that. You know, I do appreciate that. And I'll tell you right now, like, I have, if you read the book, Transcendent Alliances, and I have many transcendent allies. And these are people who I've never met. These are people who I don't want to meet because I would get my dirty, fucking flawed hands on that alliance and jeopardize it in some way. And, you know, these people are certain spiritual figures. There are, you know, guys like Alan Watts, who I've talked about before. Richard Feynman is somebody who I find myself laughing with and arguing with at times, listening to him speak. And this whole thing is really just a testament to, I know I have to keep climbing my ladder. And if anything, I'm an advocate or a mentor for people climbing the ladder. I'm not where like at the top of the world. I'm not at the top of any ladder that I'm climbing. I've got a lot of fucking work to do, but I'm doing it. And I'm a proponent for doing that work. Not acting like everything's fucking perfect all the time. Not acting like I don't have problems because I'm a master of life and everything that I do is like, no. But one of the things I notice is the way that I walk the walk. It's a lot more congruent than a lot of people who are touted as being experts in the aquarium. All right. I think I'm going to, man, I've been going for a minute. I think I'm going to stop it there. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know a bunch of you guys were hanging with me, and I appreciate all the comments. Do me a favor, if you're watching this on YouTube, do the whole like, subscribe, bell thing. If you're watching on Facebook, share it, like it, you know, all fucking algorithmic game playing shit. You know, I enjoy doing these, and this one you guys had me do a little bit of research. I had to download a picture and like make marks on it and stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Just another talk here, just a bunch of people shooting the shit. And I'll be here every Wednesday at noon to do the same. So I'll see you guys next time. And as always, brothers and sisters, pressure to power.